All right, so we're back. We did about a half day yesterday on the car. We did a couple things. We actually fit all the doors. We got the door gapped, and we showed you guys most of the cutouts. We're going to head towards the rear of the car, and we're going to show you how to do the rear wheel well, just like it was basically the front. We're going to trim it down. All these vary, so John's solution is usually turning the body upside down. You can either do it off the car, on the car. John prefers off the car.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff, especially the wheel wells, the bottom edge rocker panel of the car, you could do upside down on a piece of carpet or something like that so you don't scratch the body. We're just showing you on the car for door fitment and trunk fitment purposes so we can move along.
So we're going to mark this out. Once John marks that, we're also going to go to the trunk and we're going to gap our trunk, get our trunk fit. I suggest most of you guys, I'm going to show you the gasket. The gasket for the trunk. What I suggest is when we do the trunk itself, be careful not to ruin the gasket, but I actually fit the gasket on there. So I'll push the gasket on, make sure that return flange is all even. You'll see it's a little uneven here where they cut it. Make sure this section is pretty even. You want that to lay in there like that, push it on. Some of the places you'll see the body's actually a little thicker than others where the seam is. Get that all down so it's roughly the same thickness as all the rest. I put this on, I shut my hood, then I get my good gapping on the hood. So when you actually shut it, there's pressure of where it's going to sit. The key object is to get this thing where it needs to be just for paint. Once it's painted, everything will go together like a glove. It actually is pretty simple to put these cars together when the body is painted off the chassis. So we're going to go over to that. We're going to do the wheel well. Then I'll give you guys a little trick, a little tip on fuel cap and light. So for the fuel cap, guys always want to know orientation of the fuel cap. This is how we usually set it up. So as it opens, it'll open this way, which does not contact the body. If you guys put it like this, it's going to hit the body. It's going to chip the paint. So I set it up just like this. You can either go the other way or this way. Usually this is kind of a normal way to open it. I usually take the gasket, set the gasket up where it needs to be, drill all my holes, and now this section is done. You're just going to bolt it on. So fuel setup, super simple, super easy. Tail lights, we talked about, we're going back to square tail lights versus the two round lights. Guys, they got the round tail lights on the Mark 4s before. They already come pre-drilled. These here, you're going to drill them yourself. Super, super easy. Just use the gasket. Okay, as you do the gasket, you'll see there's two little divots on the body. Those two little divots are the reference point to these two holes. So as you put these on, you're going to see they line up perfect. Mark them, drill them, and then you're going to do one hole in the center, just enough to get that bunch of wires through. So you're only trying to get 3 little wires through that hole. So that hole there, probably use a 1/2-inch hole, and these are a quarter. So a quarter, half. So that's a pretty easy setup. So now they're not going to come pre-drilled. We're going to use the gasket. And this is all the simple stuff. We'll show you headlights also, but John's going to go through and mark his wheel well. We're going to cut the wheel well, and then we'll show you, we'll take the trunk off and we'll do the trunk.
Yeah, guys, pretty much this is the same as the front wheel well. You're going to use the tip of your finger as a guide on the top edge of the wheel well. Just describe a line along the inside edge. You could use a block to mark it. You could use tape. It's just a matter of preference. All right, now that we got that marked, we're going to grab our saw. Thank you, Tony. And we're going to cut. One rule of thumb is you got to be careful not to cut through the fender on the other side. And here we go. All right, there we go. Then again, just like the front wheel well, you're going to want to grab some 80 grit sandpaper, smooth out the edge, roll it over for paint.
you'll see what a small piece of material that we took off makes such a huge difference. Most guys don't realize to cut those wheel well openings, but it really is night and day once you do it. It just brings a really nice shape to that fender. So something pretty easy to do. Most people don't do. We just want to make sure that we give that little tip. And now we are going to head to the trunk. We're going to get the trunk gapped. John already fine lined it.
Yeah,
so he actually figured out his lines.
Did a fine line. Like we said the other day, you're going to have to go through this process 2 or 3 times to get the gap correct. Again, with the doors, you can only do so much with the trunk in place, hinged. You have to take it off to do some of the sanding, especially along the back edge.
So we're going to take it off. We use 1 bolt just for assembly purposes. That way it's just easier to take on and off.
Ta-da! All right, off to the table.
So if you guys may have a body stand, it's kind of a 2-piece of steel spread body stand. Some of that works really good. You can do just a regular table. Something just to prop it up on so you're not bending over and killing your back, because that'll get pretty old pretty quick.
Okay, once you feel you're pretty close on the grinding, you're going to want to block it out with your block. I've got some 36 grit on here right now, which is pretty aggressive sandpaper. You could use this and then go to 80 grit when you roll the edges. Okay, we're going to go ahead and remove our tape and do another fit and see how we look. Let's see.
I get them snug to the point where you can just about move them around. And if you get that, then you can kind of mess around with it. Okay.
All right, let's see what we got. Whoa.
So see how we can just move it around as it's going to fit in there. And a lot of times now, if you look, we have no gasket in there. So this is what's going to really mess people up is the height of this, seeing that this is going to go up. As that goes up, it brings this whole corner in, so now you're flush. So the key is definitely you want to put the gasket in, we'll get a rough, where it is so John can remark it. And we can get a gap, and it looks pretty darn good.
Yeah, like I said, sometimes you can use paint sticks.
Yep.
As a
Great
spacer.
trick as your spacer.
You could break this or cut it into pieces, but that's about what you want.
And that goes up, that'll go in.
Yeah.
So we're close.
Snip.
Yeah.
I'll do a snip, no?
Yeah. On the inside.
Sweet.
All right, so if you look, we got our gasket in. Just roughly in there, because we're going to take it off for paint. That's what it looks like. It sits really nice. So now when you come down, you'll see that he sits up nice and level. So now we can make our final adjustments. Okay, we got the trunk back on. So what we did was just put our bolts in. We got our gasket in. So you can see gasket's in place. So that last trim that John did got us pretty darn close to where we need to be for gaps. I mean, look at this gap here.
This gap here is pretty much right on
That's
this
pretty
side.
darn close. So this gap here, you guys can see that from here to here needs to be slightly
A little
trimmed.
tight over here, so we're just going to go ahead and kind of eyeball it with the tape. And we're going to go down to 0, right about here. So we're just going to lift that up. I'm going to grab the 3-inch roll-out grinder. I'm going to take that off, and we should be fine.
So we're going to do it on the car. So that way we're not taking the panel on and off, on and off. Then you got to readjust it every time. So if you can do as much as you can on this, even if you hold it up, believe it or not, actually right behind Mad Dog, I have a jack stand. So I put the jack stand in, and I let it rest on the jack stand. It's just a little trick that, now John can go through and grind.
Okay, we're just going to grab our sanding block. And I see that gap is pretty even. We'll do a little bit more right here, but pretty much that gap is even. So we said paint stick, 80 grit paper. That's what I use. So now that'll be a pretty consistent gap all the way around. So you can see trunks are actually pretty easy to do. Those are easy, the doors are pretty easy. We're gonna go over to the hood. And for the hood, we're gonna fit this around. And then for guys that wanna cut the hood scoop, we'll give you a measurement of where we should cut that hood scoop for most cars. I'll just take a measurement off the Mk4, we already have that set up, and then we'll show that being cut.